there.
Hello, Olaf. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Sorry for being a little bit late.
It's okay.
It was two journalists in a row were talking for 3 4 minutes longer. So I'm like, I have to go. I have to go. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, it's good to be busy anyway, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun to be talking about the album. How's Portugal?
Portugal is fine. It's been raining all day. So
Ah, okay. How
I,
how warm or cold is it there right now?
it's actually warm. It's like 18 degrees, but it's raining.
Nice.
But it's
Yeah.
not that cold anyway. So it's fine. You know, I prefer rainy weather and a bit mild temperature than just really really cold. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, it's the same here, man. I don't like the cold very much at all. Right now, outside here, it's minus 15 degrees. It's really dark, and there's snow, this deep. The only one ones who like this is my dog.
Yeah, they say it's the snow. It's like the dog's summer or something because they all play in the snow for some reason. Anyway, but let's talk about the Catalyst. It was a
Yes.
surprise for me that you guys announced the album at the Wacken Open Air. I mean, surprised in the way that normally a band doesn't announce an album so much in advance. But I understand it was a big stage. But why so long? Uh, you know, it was in August. Why announce the album then?
It was kind of a simple reason actually, because we have these 12 songs on the album that we were super enthusiastic about, and we wanted to have a long time in order to release singles in between. Because if we would have announced the album earlier, with the release of the first single, then it would have been we would have been releasing singles just a few weeks in between, and that's probably going to be a little bit overwhelming to the listener. So long story short is we also wanted to make some really killer videos. We had a lot of great ideas for that. So in order to accommodate, all these things, then we needed a bit longer time. And we also thought it was like a fun thing. Like let's get it out there that we have the new album because we're so excited about it. We have the cover art is done. There's no reason to, keep it a secret. And there was maybe a couple of fans like, yeah, but now we have to wait for such a long time. But on the other hand, we have been releasing a lot of singles since then also.
Yeah, and what was the pun intended, the catalyst for the start of making this new album?
Sorry, what was the
What was the catalyst to start the this?
ah nice one. I like it. Well, it was right at the tail end of 2020. We had just released our latest record before that, Manifest, and we were obviously right in the middle of COVID times. And we kind of said to each other, right after Manifest, that like let's take a break. Let's take a break to evaluate how the band has been working for the last 10 years. How are we touring? How frequently are we releasing albums? Like, we've been doing things the same way, more or less, for 10 years, like in terms of how we work with things. So let's take a step back and let's take a break. But the catalyst moment was like 2 3 months after the release of Manifest. Then Elise was kind of saying that, yeah, but I have these couple of ideas and concepts for songs. We don't need to start to write things yet, but what do you think? And I was kind of doing exactly the same thing. Like, we said that we weren't supposed to, but I guess we couldn't. Like, it's not like we had anything else to do, man. So we started to do these different concepts and these different interpretations of what the next album could hypothetically be. And we kind of said early on that let's not put too many boundaries on it.
Yeah.
Let's if we want to do some symphonic stuff, then we do symphonic stuff. If we want to be inspired by, I don't know, Scottish folk music, let's at least try it. And let's see, how can we continuously redefine the Amaranth sound? Because obviously when you hear an Amaranth song, it's kind of, if you know the band from before, especially if you heard all the albums, you're going to recognize directly that it's an Amaranth song. But how can you do that and still do it in a totally different way, which was, for example, our first single, Damnation Flame,
Yeah.
which is more theatrical and it's more like a bit more gothic, and it's a a vampire song basically. So how can you make a vampire song with symphonic music and still hear directly that it's Amaranth? So it's kind of these things that we were working with, and this was kind of the catalyst. Like, let's see what we can do with this album.
Yeah, and obviously there is. I don't think that there should be many boundaries in music. I mean, if it works, if it sounds good, why not try to do it? But are you guys cautious in any way of not stretching those boundaries too much?
I mean, it's both yes and no, because obviously the band was started by introducing, a lot of crazy elements that you wouldn't normally put into metal music, and we got pretty heavily criticized for it, which we kind of found entertaining and fun at the time. But quite quickly, we also realized that okay, this is a very recognizable sound. Like it's almost like we have our own genre, and there has been bands coming out since then that sounds, a little bit like us, but still there's not 10 other bands. Like when Nightwish came out, like 5 years later, there was 20 other bands that sounded like Nightwish but worse, let's say. And fortunately, we don't have so many clones or so many copycats, which means that we are kind of being protective, so we don't steer too far off from the path, because we have this really cool working space, this how should I say, this little genre of our own that we love to be working within. So we love to stretch it, and Amaranth music was from the beginning composed to be different from a lot of other metal bands. So the element of surprise should always be there, I think. And this is something that we worked a lot on with the Catalyst.
Yeah. One of the things about Amaranth, obviously, it's the electronic elements that I think it was the reason why a lot of fans criticized you in the first place, because how dare you play heavy metal and heavy electronic music in the, mixing both. But the result is quite good. I gotta be honest, in the beginning, I was a bit apprehensive when it came to the sound, but now I was listening to the Catalyst and I was imagining when I was 16, when I went to the heavy metal clubs and I was basically on my own on the dance floor, just headbanging. And I was imagining the same listening to this album.
I mean, that's totally great, man. And I think what's more clear to people now than it was maybe 13 years ago. We released our first single, and what people were saying back then, that this is essentially the end of heavy metal as we know it. Like it had a good run, but now this band Amaranthe came from Sweden and just fucking killed it. So now it's dead forever. And I was kind of laughing about it because I figured that maybe that's a bit over dramatic, but it's fun to see that kind of strong emotional reactions, because it meant that we did something that provoked emotions in people and even in yourself. But 13 years later, I think it's clear to everyone that we are a metal band. Like the bands that we tour with, they are metal bands. We release our albums on a heavy metal label. We pretty much only play heavy metal festivals. So, I mean, we sit very comfortably in the metal scene. It's just that our influences are, kind of different than a lot of the other bands are. But that's always been the case, with heavy metal. Like already in the 70s and in the 80s, like if you listen to the very first Black Sabbath records where metal comes from, they have ballads and they have acoustic guitars. They have lots of influences from other kinds and styles of music. There's some, with Black Sabbath, there's some English folk music, for example. So I think in order to keep heavy metal interesting, it should have an open mind and it should be open to, developing. And at the end of the day, if you don't like the direction that heavy metal in general is heading in in our case, for example, then a person doesn't need to listen to it. Because heavy metal today is so diverse. There are bands that literally sound like Black Sabbath that are releasing albums today.
Yeah.
So if you want to be ultra conservative, you can always listen to that. And I think that's what's fantastic about heavy metal, is that it is so diverse and there are so many different things being done.
Yeah. For me, as I'm getting older, I'm getting way more open-minded musically. But, I came back from... My dad had ABBA records, he had the Beatles, he had Queen, and I discovered heavy metal by myself. And I was very protective of that genre I discovered by myself, and I just wanted to listen to it. But now I don't care. If the music is good, bring it on. I just want to enjoy music, and I don't care really what genre is. Obviously, I prefer heavy metal, more than anything. But if there's a good pop artist, a good country artist, why not listen to it? It's not the end of the world. It's just music.
No, exactly, and that's what I try to do. Tell people also, when if they get a little bit upset and we're having a conversation about it, like let's say with Merciful Fate, for example, like with King, like if you would ask him, because I talked to him, ask him what kind of music he listens to at home, and he's obviously a very heavy metal guy, and fantastic artist and fantastic singer. But I think it's the same thing for me as well. Like I can totally get why people are protective about it, because when I discovered heavy metal, like in a very similar way to what you're describing, my dad was listening to, maybe the heaviest was Led Zeppelin and, some Steppenwolf and, that kind of thing. And he gave me, he was listening a little bit to Metallica at the time. And this was before the release of And Justice for All. So I was only a small kid. So I was listening to Battery, the first track from Master of Puppets, and I was blown away. But what I remember is, first thing that I thought was that this is very powerful. It's very aggressive. It's very to the point. But I also remember that a song like Battery, in the way that they sing Battery, it's actually very catchy chorus, the way that it goes into the chorus. So, and obviously this comes from pop music. It doesn't come from anywhere else, basically. So, but I was very protective about my heavy metal until I was maybe 14, 15. And then, I started to listen to a lot of pop music at the same time. And I guess Amaranthe is kind of the result of that.
Yeah. And, I think The Catalyst is a very strong record. And, we have talked before, and obviously having three singers, it's a big undertaking, especially when you have 3-minute songs. We're not talking about like something like Avantasia, where you have 10-minute songs with, different singers, which I love, by the way. But you guys have 3 vocalists and 3-minute songs. And I always wonder, how do you guys make, the singer fit in that song without anyone being annoyed by it or saying, no, I want to sing a bit more on this part? How does it work?
I mean, it's a really interesting question, because it's always a balancing act, and there should be a good balance. And like I say, the songs are rather short, so you have to be careful that you're not ignoring one of the singers, unless that's part of the dynamics. Because when you bring the stuff on stage, then if you have all 3 singers at the same time on stage, they should have something to do, because otherwise they're just standing there with the mic going like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, right? So, and it's also about the dynamics on the album, like, because you can do really quick trades between the 3 singers. Like we just released a song called Revision, where the trades go like really fast back and forth. And you could also do the trade like Elise sings an entire verse and a chorus, and only then do the other singers come in, and a million different ways. So we're constantly kind of rediscovering how we can work with these things. And fact of the matter is that our new singer, Michael, he can also, he's a very good clean singer. So he could potentially down the line, I'm not saying that it is going to happen, but I said it could happen in the future, that you have all 3 singers kind of singing harmonies together or something like that. But it's always really fun to figure out like who's going to sing what, and also, what part fits a certain singer the best. Also kind of why should the singer sing this part? What is the exact reason? And I think, Elise, who writes all the vocal lines, very often she has an idea. So she can write the vocal line in a way, like, let's take a song like The Nexus, if you heard it, like an old song. Like the pre-chorus there, she sang it for Jake like it was a Dio vocal line. So she wrote a part for herself that was very poppy. And then she wrote a totally different kind of part for the, male clean singer. So, but it's a lot of, conversations back and forth. We also try to always involve the other singers. So they can have their, Nils is very involved in this process. Like he can clearly say like, I want to sing this and I also want to sing that because, and he always has a good reason for it.
Yeah. And, because on the record, and we're talking about the vocalists, we have the ballad Stay a Little While, where it's mainly Liz and Nils. And that makes sense because, in a way, it's a ballad, and it's important that the clean singers show more on the song. And for me, it's one of the highlights of the record. It's the ballads. I'm a sucker for ballads, as I say, and I absolutely love.
Same here, man.
I love this song. What was who came up with the idea for it?
Well, it was interesting. It was almost exactly 1 year ago. This was right in the middle of celebrating, Christmas and stuff like that. So I was off at a friend's place having dinner, and while we were having dinner, like Elise texts me on Messenger saying that we should work on a ballad. I have so many ideas. I'm like, I'm kind of preoccupied at the moment, but I can text you when I come home. And so later when I come home, I have 40 different ideas for vocal lines for what could be the new ballad. So I'm like, okay, stretching my fingers, clicking, listening to all of them, and all of the ideas are great. But then you have this main vocal line from the chorus and also the intro. And I immediately like, okay, that's the one. Like, you really killed it here. So I write back to Elise that I'm going to start to work on this immediately, even if it's like 11 o'clock in the evening. And I think probably maybe 3 hours later, I had like a basic arrangement until the chorus. And it's very similar in the way that it actually appears on the album. So it's one of these moments of inspiration. And in terms of balancing with vocalists, I mean, you can absolutely put growls on a ballad like we did with Amaranthe, for example, but it doesn't always fit. And sometimes it has to match the emotions, because the growls, they're a powerful expression of emotion.
Yeah.
And when you have that really powerful expression of emotion, there should be lyrics and a context to match that kind of specific emotion. And it's really great live to sometimes not have a singer. So you have dynamics in the show.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we have a song called Boom, where Elise, she's not on the stage at all throughout the entire song. So it's cool to have these different opportunities and even give the singers a chance to rest also.
Get some air. It's important.
Exactly. Take a breather. Yeah.
And the last track on the album, it's a cover version, Fading Like a Flower. Honestly, it's a Roxette version. I was listening to the song and I was like, is it really the Roxette song? I was listening to the original and I was like, and you guys arrange it like in a different way that I think it's very interesting, because sometimes there is a tendency to stay true to the original, but you guys stretched it, and I think it works real well. One of the bands that I enjoyed when they did versions was Nevermore, because they would always write their own song around that version. So, and I felt like this one was a bit like that you guys, there's the original idea, but you made it Amaranthe.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you for that, because I consider that a great compliment. And what you said about the Nevermore songs, it's exactly how I think covers should be done. Because sometimes you have bands that make covers, like let's say a metal band that makes a cover of another metal band, and all of a sudden they sound like the other metal band instead of sounding like themselves. And I kind of go, I see what you're doing there, because it's cool to pay tribute.
Yeah.
And I will put no criticism into it. But the way that we like to do it is to take the song and, exactly like you described, like around this other song, construct our own thing. So that was a little bit of a challenge when we did the first two cover songs, which was Powerwolf, Army of the Night, and there was Sabaton, 82nd All the Way. These are already metal songs, and they already have keyboards on them. So how do we do it in our own style? And as soon as I started to arrange both these songs, I'm like, yeah, I spend half a day doing this, and now it sounds exactly like Amaranthe. And a lot of people heard both the Powerwolf cover and the Sabaton cover, and they didn't realize it wasn't us. And with the Roxette song, I think the greatest compliment is that a lot of the American journalists, they don't realize that Roxette is a different band. They don't necessarily read what it says. They just put it on in the background. And several people have said that, yeah, it's one of my favorite Amaranth songs on this album. I'm like, it's actually not an Amaranth song. So yeah, we twisted it, turned it, but we kept all the original parts are there, like all the melodies, all the chord progressions, but made into like an Amaranth style.
Yeah. And you know, as a guitar player, obviously you have your space for a guitar solo. Obviously they are not, you know, as long as traditional heavy metal bands where they like to stretch the bars a bit, which, you know, I love it as well. You know, I love when there's like dual solo wars going on. But, you know, your approach is very concise when it comes to the solos, and they are very good and very melodic in a way. How long normally do you take to write a solo for a song in Amaranthe?
It depends a little bit on what kind of solo it is, and I totally agree with you. Like it can be, I mean, I love Yngwie Malmsteen, for example, and his songs are usually just long solos, and I love every second of it. So I don't have any principles against long solos. I think with Amaranth, like with the short and explosive structure, it just fits better with the shorter, more straight to the point solos. But to answer your question, like what I usually do is that I know what the solo part is. I put it on, I have, the guitar plugged in, and I kind of just jam over it like 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And after 4 or 5 times, I know pretty well where it should be heading. Like, where should I play melodies? Where should there be something catchy? Where should they be like a technical lick, a technical run? And I think this is a great way to be working with solos. I heard from Alexi Lyle back in the day, probably 20 years ago, that this was exactly his approach to recording and writing solos. And I was thinking that it's good to have confirmation from such a great guitar player that this is a good way to go about it. And sometimes it can be a little bit different. Like I'll just mention one example for Stay a Little While, the ballad also, because that's much more of a melody. So what I did there was that I composed the melody first, actually on keyboards and with the chords in the background. So there would be a good melody and a good unity to the part, basically. And then I just recorded on guitars in 1 take or 2 takes, something like that. So it depends a little bit on what the solo is, but usually it's the way that I said previously.
Yeah. Do normally like the first or second take are the best? If you try to overdo it, it doesn't sound as good for you.
I can tell that you are a musician yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've done a few times, like with some solos. I recorded it and, I record maybe 40 more takes, like a stupid amount of takes. And then at the end of the day, like I listen to all the takes and I ask somebody else to play them. So I don't know what order it is. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely the best one. And people go, oh, yeah, that's the first one.
And you guys are going to tour Europe with the Dragon Force, which was, the thing you did in the States, but now you're going to do in Europe. You guys looking forward to play these European shows with Dragon Force again?
I mean, we've known Dragon Force for a long time, so it's really cool to finally be doing this tours. We talked about it for quite a long while. And obviously, we already did the US one, and it was a really nice dynamic. And now it's going to be, a different dynamic, considering that we are having this Infected Rain as the opening band, and we're now doing the co-headlining, so Amaranthe gets to play a longer set. And we're also being very ambitious with the stage build this time. So what we put on the stage kind of creates this catalyst environment. So it's the first time that we're working with stuff like that, and it's going to be really, really cool. It's something that we're working a lot on at the moment. So, and it's always a different experience to tour Europe. And in some ways, it's a little easier because the distances are actually longer in the US because it's a big continent, And I love all these old European cities, like from everywhere from Lisbon to Budapest to Paris. Like you have the architecture and the food, and in your case, we have the port wine, for example. Yeah. So there's always a lot of great experiences to be had.
Yeah. And, with Dragon Force, obviously they have those, arcades on stage. I don't know how the fuck they managed to put that stuff on stage.
Yeah, it's not easy, I tell you, man.
Did you guys felt tempted just, to use that as well if they would let you, just for the fun of it?
I mean, we have some video game songs, so it would kind of work. But no, I mean, those arcade machines, man, they're made out of real wood.
Yeah.
So they kind of have to, certain parts, they have to kind of construct them and deconstruct them every time they put it on set. But they are the Dragon Force members. They're actually really engaged and involved in this themselves. They have a great crew. So, they make it work, but it's not an easy thing. It's a big project every day.
Yeah, very good. And, when can we see you guys play in Portugal? What do we need to do? I know you guys work with you have a guitar tech, a Portuguese guy. And Nuno. Yes. When can you guys, come back to Portugal? What do we have to do to make you guys play here?
Yeah, I mean, we to my knowledge, we've only played Portugal once, I think, and that was back in 2011. I also played with Night Rage. I played a couple of shows also. Yeah. And in Portugal, there's even the town called Amaranthe, so that's saying something. But I mean, unfortunately, a lot of times the routing is not really up to us in the band. First you have an agent that suggests different cities. And as soon as you go off the beaten path, like for example, we never played Greece ever with Amaranthe because you have to drive all down the Balkans and you have to kind of fiddle around with a lot. But to me, it should be to play more shows first in Spain, so it's easier for us to go to Portugal and then back. For us, it would make a lot of sense. I mean, we had the only time that we played in Portugal was in Porto.
Yeah.
And we walked around the city. We looked at the old bridge from the, late 1800s, and we took the cable car.
Yeah.
We obviously tasted the port wine. We had some of the best fish I've ever had. So, and the audience was amazing. So we have plenty of really good reasons to come back. So if it's up to me, the sooner the better.
Yeah. Well, we have to push for the promoters to try to bring you guys back. Olof, thank you very much for your time. All the best for the Catalyst. It's a great record, as I said. I was enjoying it like I was on a freaking dance floor when I was 16. At home, obviously, with no one watching, as always. But it's a great record. And, hopefully we can see you guys in Portugal. Otherwise, we'll just try to go somewhere to see you guys in Europe. Have a great day and hope to see you soon, all right?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the great comments. That's fantastic to hear, and I hope to see you in Portugal soon.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great day and see you soon, all right? Thank you.
Yeah, see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.